welcome to Money, 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 your weekly personal finance date with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. Let me start by wishing all of our viewers a very, very happy new year. May 2022 be safe, healthy, and fulfilling for everyone out there. Now, the big question. What will this year be like for money and investing? What are the trends to watch out for and the products to perhaps keep in mind with respect to your personal finance portfolio? Well, joining me to answer those and many other questions in this New Year special are Kalpen Parekh, CEO and MD of DSP Investment Managers, and Anshu Kapoor, President and Head of Investment Management at Edelweiss Wealth. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for taking out the time. So let me start by wishing both of you, of course, a very happy new year. From the health point of view, we're still sort of in slightly murky waters, but hopefully it'll get better. Kalpen, your first thoughts as you've looked at trends of 21, the way people have come to the equity market through funds or through direct investing. What comes to mind and what's the topmost on your mind when you think of money in 2022?
Happy New Year to you and your viewers, Surabhi. Thanks for inviting me for the show. I feel investors are getting more serious about making money and having a very disciplined way of investing. And that has been one important positive observation for the last year. Of course, in every bull market, there are many investors who come for different reasons. But the segment which is coming for disciplined long-term investing is rising. And to me, that is a very heartening fact. No doubt, whatever we have invested in has made money. It also does create an illusion of certainty in an asset class which actually inherently is a volatile asset class. So I think 2022 will have two important drivers to be watchful about. One, do we see an extension of the trend of very solid earnings growth that we have seen in the last 1 year? The earnings growth in last 1 year is something that we've not seen for the last 10, 12 years. So whether we see an extension of that, because we will see margins coming back under pressure as cost structures normalize after huge cost savings during the COVID wave, number one. Commodity prices have risen, so again, that will put pressure on margins. So if earnings growth slow down and disappoint the current valuations, that is something which will lead to volatility, and investors should be wary of that, number one. The second thing is valuations. Large chunk of comfort on valuations is on account of, one, the earnings growth that I mentioned. Second, very easy interest rates globally. And that is turning now because of inflation and central bank actions world over. Interest rates are likely to rise in the course of next few quarters. And if that has a bearing on bringing valuations down, valuations are nothing but gravity after all, that can lead to more volatility. So for all investors who have been happy investors in the last 2 years, the next year will be a real test match, and we will have to be fairly disciplined in our approach of investing and have reasonable expectations.
Okay, so strap up for what may be a slightly more volatile ride and be disciplined. I guess that's the big takeaway. Got that, Kalpen. Let me welcome Anshu into the conversation as well. Anshu, Kalpen is right. The equity market was so charitable, 25% on the index, much more on individual stocks. So what say, will 2022 be as good?
Hi, Surabhi. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, absolutely. My friend Kalpen is very right. We've seen a phenomenal rise in equity valuations and equity markets. So it appears all too easy when you see all of this. There are definitely headwinds, but I must point out, I am very positive. We are very positive. There is definitely a lot of tailwind as well. And I think we have to put things in perspective. Listen, when we see the last 5 to 10 years, for a very long time, the global markets were doing very well, but India perhaps was not doing so well for a variety of reasons. So there was a lot of catch up, especially from an earnings perspective. And therefore, I see several drivers for growth, Surabhi, if I may say, for India per se. I think the GDP, obviously, we know that this year is expected to be anywhere between 9 to 9.5%. Consumption remains very, very strong. Some of the sectors that are booming is IT services. IT exports or services exports this year are supposed to be about $200 billion. Overall, merchandise exports are booming, right? Real estate finally has revived in India. Residential real estate, which was down for about 8 years, seems to be reviving. And add to that a booming FDI market, a booming private equity market. So I think the signs are very, very positive, so to speak. Obviously, valuations will go up and down. But what I see is on the horizon, at least for India, a very positive economic environment.
Okay. Fair enough. So good to have that optimistic viewpoint. You know, gentlemen, before I start talking about the approach to the portfolio for this year, given all the variables, I want to get your take very quickly on two very clear trends that played out in 21 and, you know, ask you whether they'll continue in 22. One of those trends was DIY investing. A lot of people were moving away from mutual funds, doing their own stock portfolios and small case portfolios in some cases. The other trend was going global. And we saw that play out as well in terms of just the exposure to whether it was the US market or several other markets. So will that continue and is that healthy? How should you look at it, Anshu?
Well, Surbhi, to answer the second part of the question, yes, international diversification makes a lot of sense. India finally is 2.5% of the world market cap. So why not look at the remaining 97.5%? It makes a lot of sense. And fortunately, a lot of good products are now available to Indian investors. So therefore, it makes a lot of sense to diversify internationally. It diversifies your country risk, currency risk, and it also gives you access to themes or investing ideas which you may not have available in India so far. So I think that's a great thing. As far as this DIY investing is concerned, I think we are just at the inflection point. We've just begun, actually. India, after all the growth that we saw last year in number of folios, number of demat accounts and all, we are only about 85 million odd folio demat accounts or so. So I think there's a lot of growth available in front of us. As far as this DIY is concerned, it's actually very fascinating. If you look at the way investors have taken up to investing, it's very encouraging. It will go a long way in building an equities culture in this country, a savings and investing culture in the country. And I believe that trend will pick up as more and more investors come into the fold and as more and more tools become available to them. So I think it's very, very encouraging.
Okay, got that. Kalpen, come in on this. I'll start with actually the whole international fund sort of bonanza that's playing out right now. There are so many new offerings that are out there, whether it's feeder funds that are going into global funds or whether it's index funds or ETFs. But why I worry is at a time when so many of these products, particularly on US technology stocks, are becoming available, we are seeing a big cool off in exactly that side of the market, the cool off on the NASDAQ. So do investors have a reason to worry in 22?
So, Surbhi, my view is investing is cyclical and themes keep changing. When I look at international investing for my own portfolio, the only observation I make, which makes me invest globally, is India has 30-35% in lenders. And when you invest in global markets, the largest weights are technology and healthcare and consumer businesses. So when you blend the two, you get a fairly complementary, diversified base. When you buy India, it is typically financials and consumption. When you buy global companies, it is automation, it is digitization, it is healthcare, it is innovation. So in a way, they complement each other. Number two, the cycles of each segments will keep fluctuating. If we were talking in 2016 and 17, those were the days, when we were coming after demonetization. The biggest narratives that were discussed was financialization of savings in India and a long runway and so on and so forth. And, banking stocks were at 6, 7, 8 times price to book. And then in the next 3-4 years, they underperformed and technology picked up, healthcare stocks picked up. So these cycles will continue. The good thing that, I like is global champion companies, especially the tech companies which impact businesses around the world. They are making us talk today in this format. If Zoom was not there, we would not be talking in a seamless way like this. These companies were very frothy 1 year back because the narrative gets priced in very fast, especially in years when investors are happy to press the trigger and invest their money on narratives. So all these stocks ran up a lot. So many companies were at 10, 20, 30 times price to sales, not price to equity. So they are cooling off right now. And to all investors, I would say that, it is better to invest in themes or ideas when they are cooling off not when the narrative is strong. Because if you and I are talking about that narrative, it is already in the price. So for global stocks, I think the narrative is slowing down right now. The last 1 year, so I was just seeing today, Nasdaq, some of these innovative companies globally, that entire basket of portfolio is down 20 to 25%. So you are better off investing in themes like this when they are coming down rather than when they are peaking. But keep in mind that they should be a part of a very long-term portfolio structure. Invest for 10, 15 years, take advantage of these great business models, which are, impacting every part of the world. So I would be very excited with this trend of global investing picking up. Now, there are two types of reasons why one is investing. One is past reason, fundamentally the worst reason to invest in. And the second is the complementarity that it offers to make our portfolios more resilient and less volatile. We did this analysis that if you blend Nifty and the global market, MSCI World, and you put the two together, the long-term returns more or less remain the same, but the volatility comes down by 20%. So that is the right reason for global investing, not the last 1 or 2 years. So I would be very excited. And while we are talking, I was just seeing some data. 48,000 crores is the amount of money that through mutual funds is getting invested globally, either through feeder funds or through direct stocks.
Okay, well,
and I think that trend will continue.
That's a helpful stat actually to know that this global diversification is bringing down volatility, maybe not necessarily boosting return too much, but at least the volatility in the portfolio comes down. So that's something to keep in mind. We will take a break on that note. On the other side, the conversation continues. The critical question, what should your portfolio look like for 2022? We'll ask our experts. Welcome back. You're with us on the New Year special edition of Money, 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 and we are in conversation with Kalpen Parekh of DSP Mutual Fund, as well as Anshu Kapoor of Edelweiss Wealth. It's time to now get to the most critical question. What should the portfolio look like for 2022? Now, Anshu, I was going through some of the notes that you'd sent. Let's pick up a portfolio for a medium risk or moderate risk investor between equity, debt, real estate, since you seem to be positive on that. All these asset classes put together, give us the mix and perhaps names of some of the mutual funds that you like.
Sure, Surbhi. Well, I think before we get into the actual portfolio or the construct of the portfolio, it's also important to think about the framework. And like we know that what worked in the past may or may not work in the future. And also it's important to maybe assess and review what is not working in the portfolio. Also think through what are the new opportunities available. And finally, what are the couple of trends that we need to think of when we need to think of building our portfolio. So I think it's important for everyone to have these questions in mind before you actually get down to building the portfolio, reviewing or rebalancing your portfolio. Well, like we said, we are fairly positive on equity markets. And actually, I'll try and address this in two parts. One is what to do with your equities portfolio, and the other is how to think about fixed income and what opportunities could be there. Well, as far as equity is concerned, broad-based exposure through large cap mutual funds, mid cap mutual funds, and also ETFs. Do think about ETFs as a way to get this broader allocation into your portfolio. I think there are a lot of good products available on the ETF side to take advantage of building a low cost allocation on the broader markets. As far as some of the themes are concerned, and we've seen the role active managers play for us to get access to those themes. So do think about some of the flexi cap strategies, some of the mid cap strategies and small cap strategies. I think overall about a moderate portfolio, 45% allocated to equities. And if I may just move on to fixed income, Surbhi, I think that is a very important part of the portfolio that we don't talk about much. And actually the hunt for yield is very real right now because the interest rates are all-time low. And therefore it is very difficult for clients or investors to find fair amount of yield for as much as 50 to 60% of their portfolios that are investing into fixed income. So as far as fixed income is concerned, there are these two interesting opportunities I would like investors to consider. One is called REITs, Real Estate Investment Trusts, and the other is InvITs. For REITs, anywhere between 6.5% to 7% pre-tax return. InvITs, anywhere between 8 to 8.5% pre-tax return. So do think about some of these strategies, and we can talk about more themes as we go along. If you have any more questions.
Okay, REITs and InvITs is really interesting, Anshu. Also, since you mentioned fixed income, and I think that's the real challenge, how to get a better possible yields, and also we might start seeing interest rates rise this year, maybe even in India. Which are the kind of debt funds to avoid, and which ones can you be in with reasonable sort of safety?
Well, I would encourage investors to not get carried away and take too much risk. Actually, you should ask, is the risk worth it? If you are diversifying away from anything that is very high quality, which I say would be AAA or maybe AA. Anything below, I think you need to ask a very serious question. Are you getting rewarded enough to take that kind of a risk? And therefore, because the spreads are not so rich, the yields are not so rich, just do not get lured into a lower quality portfolio for yourself to make 1% to 2% extra. So please do think about it. And therefore, I continue to maintain that if you want to diversify into REITs or InvITs. Do not take unnecessary risk on your fixed income portfolios. Wait to see how the yields go up. Wait whether they go up or not, and what kind of products and opportunities get available to you. So therefore, be cautious if you are diluting risk on your portfolio.
Okay, REITs and InvITs, perhaps worth considering for your fixed income portfolio this year. So that's a tip right there. Okay, let me ask you, Kalpen, about one question that's been on my mind. This flurry of new fund offerings that we saw in 2021, is it going to continue in 22? And sometimes I wonder what the rationale is and whether there is a strategic fit or not. A lot of these, by the way, these NFOs are on the index fund side or the ETF side, the passive side. Should we expect more of this? And is it really because AMCs are getting aggressive, or is there really a need for the investor?
So Surabhi, if an auto company were to launch more products or a consumer company were to launch more products, you would celebrate that, right? The stock price would go up. So I look at it in a more balanced perspective that asset managers are, increasing the choice for the consumers. And the right investors can then pick and choose and design their own portfolios in line with the trend where investors are seeking more empowered choices, where they want to take decisions. They want to mix and match their portfolios. At some stage, we will become like an IKEA, where the building blocks are available in terms of active funds, passive funds, domestic, international, diverse asset classes. And I think this is bound to happen when demand picks up on one side. And what the fund industry is doing is, in a way, creating supply for the demand which is picking up. And it is one way of competing or ensuring that the investor does not leave you just because one product is not available with you. So I think NFOs may continue. Typically, they continue when there is demand for investing. When the demand wanes, when stock markets correct or prices correct, the supply also slows down. So this is part of a cycle. I think investors should see this as more choices available. He doesn't have to bite every NFO that comes his way. In last 5 years, I have invested in 3 NFOs, for example, of so many which have come, and maybe let's say 10 would have come from DSP myself, right? So each investor has to, understand himself either directly or with his advisor, whether it makes sense in his basket or not. And lastly, we came up with an OFO, which was not an NFO. If you remember 3 months back, it was an old fund offer.
Old fund offering.
Yeah, there are so many existing funds with 25-year track record, 5% alpha. You don't have to run behind everything which is new if it is bold.
Yeah, I mean, DSP has always been known for, of course, some very, very smart marketing, some very, very interesting advertising. So OFO is probably one such example. We have exactly 20 seconds left on the show. So very quickly, between both of you, your own personal investment tip for 2022, or the one product that you will ensure you have in your personal portfolios. Kalpen?
So quickly, 40 rupees of Indian equities, 20 rupees of global equities, 30 rupees of Indian debt, 10 rupees of commodity or gold type of portfolios. So that is my one simple asset allocation formula for next year.
Okay, and Anshu?
Well, it will not be too different from what Kalpen said. Perhaps 40 again equities, which will include international equities, fixed income, balanced, and with a good inclusion of REITs and InvITs.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's always good to have some consensus on the panel, especially when it comes to matters of money. It makes things a little easier for our viewers. Thank you very much for joining in and sharing your insights, and wish both of you a fantastic 2022. And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Money, 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 and it is a special edition, especially for me, as this happens to be my last show. I have thoroughly enjoyed bringing you conversations on personal finance over the last 6 odd years. It has been incredibly satisfying to make money and investing simple and uncomplicated. Thank you, viewers, for all the love and support. And a big thank you to our channel, CNBC TV 18, for making these conversations possible. Until next time, this is Surabhi Upadhyay signing off. Thank you for watching.